2024 Kinetic. We're going to be talking about the half, the long course edition of our race this year. Our race is a little bit of a ways out. This is on May the 11th here, but I wanted to just dive into some race specifics and details to help everyone get ready because it is going to sneak up on us faster than we think. So a couple of quick things. We are on the landing page for the Kinetic half. We can talk about the half over here. Course details are listed here. Also for the Olympic, also for the sprint. Today we're talking about the half. Scrolling down here again, we have loads of tabs that we can also click on. We have course cutoff times, which are listed here for the half. We have an hour and 30 swim, 5-hour bike, 8 hours for the run / finish total. We also have novice athletes here, some things like race numbers, body marking, timing chips, transition area. There's also USAT transition rules. Highly recommend that anyone read those. We also have water temperature and wetsuit guidelines there for you. There's also volunteer lists here, race swag, photos, lodging, packet pickup, and all kinds of cool details that we are going to get into. So don't be afraid to head over to the website and just peruse around for a couple of minutes. A lot of cool information here. There's two options for our packet pickup. The first one for the long course is on Friday from 5 to 7 at the State Park Beachfront from 6 p.m. Excuse me, 6 p.m. is the race briefing as well the day before. The address is listed there. The second option is on race day, Saturday, 5:30 to 6:30 a.m. With the pre-race briefing happening at 6:45 a.m. at the swim start site. Participants must collect their own event packets. Photo ID is required. No ID means you will not race. You can take a photo of your ID, and that will be sufficient as an ID for you. Going back to our details, if we click on our athlete guide, again, this hasn't been updated yet, but it is generally all the same here, and they rarely change things. If they offer different nutrition, they will also update this. They will also let you know on their Facebook pages as well. They're really good about that. Make sure you follow them on Facebook, Kinetic Multisports. They are awesome at communication. So this is what you will find at at the athlete guide here. This is typically what happens on race day, 5 to 7 p.m. Again, day before packet pickup, Saturday race day. Transition closes 6:45 with the race start for the long course and a time trial start happening at 7 a.m. The award ceremony for the long course happened at 1:45 p.m. This is our schedule of events here, and it kind of lists the exact same thing. Excuse me. And then again, race start. This is for our long course. This is going to be the sprint on the next day right here. So parking and the race site, it's laid out in a very cool way. This is the road that you're going to be driving in on. This is our athlete check-in. This parking lot right here is going to be athlete parking and spectator parking here. Do not keep going over here unless they tell you to, because this is overflow parking. This is directly on the course right here, as I'm highlighting. There's also another parking lot over here, and that's for boats only, so do not park over there. This is our transition area over here, and there will be a little walk that you have to do after you do check in. You'll go to transition, set everything up, and then you'll walk back down to our swim start, which is going to be located right here. Finish line is also going to be located here. The run course flows through this little section back here and pops out right over here, and you are finishing next to the beach adjacent, which is really cool. This is a photo of exactly what we just talked about right here. This is our transition area. See, there are some cars there, but again, not too many. Most of them are over here. This is the little marina spot over here. There's usually bathrooms over there. They're going to have Don John's, porta potties, whatever you want to call them. All of that good stuff. Again, things to bring: photo ID, bring your questions. Everyone under 18 has to get their packet picked up with an adult. Race categories: you can change your category during the race. For example, if you wanted to do the aqua bike instead, that's a time for you to switch. 10 things to know about race day are on page 6. On page 7 are the course cutoff times that we just talked about earlier. Transition area is going to be closed 15 minutes before the start of the first swimmer. Bike rack. Again, in Kinetic Sports, they have a first come, first serve policy. There's going to be a 10-foot section bike rack, and there's going to be 6 bikes there, 3 facing each way. All right, 3 facing each way. And again, this is first come, first serve, so the early risers are going to be able to pick their primo spots there. So if you arrive a little bit later, you're probably going to have a little worse rack spot. Aqua bike, swim bike category. Your time's gonna stop when you pass the dismount line. Just make sure that you check in with the people at the aqua bike tent there as well. Race numbers, again, if you are, let's call you a novice, someone who is not super well versed in the triathlon world, page 9 talks about your race numbers, where to place them on the run. Bring your race belt, right? And you're going to have that on the front while you run, on the bike, helmet, and on your bike. Also, your timing chip has to be on your left ankle. They will give all of this to you at the race site. Also, again, body marking. Definitely have to do it. It is on page 9. Aid stations on the bike. There are going to be 2 that have water and Gatorade on the bike. You're going to be able to hit those twice, so you have 4 opportunities to refuel or replenish or get topped off with Gatorade / water. There are porta potties on the bike course as well. Please discard all empty bottles 50 meters before / after each bike aid station. If you do before that or after that, you will be hit with a littering penalty. On the run, there's going to be 4 water Gatorade stops on each loop, which means you're going to have a load of opportunities to fuel, hydrate, cool down, whatever. Each of those are going to have a variety of snacks and fluids, which are going to include water, Gatorade, Coke, ice, pretzels, and bananas. They tell you to keep the litter as close as possible to the aid stations to help keep the park clean. So just be aware of that. We don't need to talk about the next 2 because we are just talking about the half. Race results and awards. You can scan this. There's also going to be a rolling tent with a projector that's listed all of the results on race day. It's very, very cool. It is live updated, which is even cooler out there. Page 12 talks about USAT rules and penalties. Again, highly encourage you to read the USAT rules, which they linked. Those are the most commonly violated rules, like drafting, littering, all of that good stuff. And there are some updated rules, again, for 2023. So this is a little old, but they will update this as it gets closer to race day. Scrolling down here on page 13, they talk about the wetsuit rules. They follow the USAT cutoff of 78 or below. Wetsuits are allowed 78.1 to 83.9. You can wear a wetsuit, but you will not be eligible for awards. 84 degrees and over, wetsuits are not permitted. This is a hit or miss race. It can be really, really cold out there. The water might be hot out there. It's just up in the air, and we are a little too far out to kind of identify that now. So as the race gets closer, they are going to be posting water temperatures, I believe 48 hours and 24 hours before the race. So you are going to have ample opportunity to be warned about it. You can also reach out to them, or a little trade secret, you can check out the Lake Anna water temperatures online ahead of time. That's not associated with this race, but it is available there. Also, if you have anyone living on the lake, ask them to put a thermometer in the water to let you know what the temperature is, so you can get a little more insight. Scrolling down here, they talk about their shops and things like that. Page 16 talks about the swim. The swim course is mapped out, and again, we're going to go dive into the course specifics in a second. There are not going to be wetsuit strippers. There never are. And again, they talk about the temperatures being taken on race morning. The swim is a time trial start where they release 2 people at a time every 3 to 5 seconds. They tell you to pick a buddy. And again, if you talk to people beforehand and identify what kind of race they're going to have, if you know you're swimming at a 30-minute slot, try to find someone else who's going to generally swim around you, and that will be very beneficial, very, very beneficial for both of your races. You can hang on to a kayak to catch your breath, but the kayaker will not be allowed to pull you through. So depending on where the wind is blowing, that could actually hurt you on race day, or it could help you, so the kayak will physically stop itself, so you don't have to be worried about that. The bike, page 17. Again, the bike course is posted, and there are 2 laps on the bike for our long distance here. Know the course. Make sure you are aware that there are 2 aid stations. There are porta-johns out there. Shouldn't be any littering. The course will be marked with yellow duct tape arrows and yellow directional signs at the turns, um, with mileage signs every 5 miles. So you will have ample opportunity to know where you are, how far you've gone if you do not have a bike computer or GPS listed there. Again, rules and etiquette. You must wait to mount your bike until after crossing the mount/dismount line. There's no drafting, no crossing the yellow lines, all of that good stuff there. And again, you can read that on page 17. 18 is the run. The run map is posted. We have 3 loops on the bike here. So when we talk about our run course, remember that it is a 3-loop bike course. Excuse me, run course. Wow. And again, you're also going to be required to have your number in front of you. And if you only do 2 laps instead of the 3, you will be disqualified. So make sure you are aware of how many you've done. Also, the aid stations are going to be located approximately every mile on the run. So there's ample opportunity to cool yourself off. And that is our athlete guide in a nutshell here. So as we scroll up here, I just wanted to do this for you live so you can see if you click the course maps button, a load of different things pops up. This is our swim course, and this is going to be our first real dive into race specifics here. So before we start out, I just wanted to mention that depending on what way the wind is blowing and the currents are going on that day, the water can push you this way or it can push you this way. It's not overly strong, but it is noticeable out there. If it's not directly that, it's going to be a variation of something like this. If it is this direction, there's land over here, so expect a little swirl as you get closer to land right through there. But again, it's not a washing machine effect. It's just barely noticeable out there. So the currents are probably not going to be super high on your priority list, but just be aware that those do exist out there, and you can usually see them when you are walking down to the race site itself, okay? The long course, make sure you are swimming to the far buoys out there on race day. That are these buoys right through here. If you only swim to the Olympic ones, you will be disqualified. All right. Diving into the first section of our race over here, some insider tips at the very, very beginning. There used to be an old dock there. The old dock is broken. It's gone. But what remains are pillars out there. Make sure you watch for where the pillars are. Not uncommon for athletes to just swim straight into some of these pillars that are sticking a foot and a half out of the water on race day. They do hide once you get into the water. They are very, very hard to see. So make sure you actively pick those out before you get into the water. If you have the ability to get there the day before and just splash around, make sure you identify where these things are for those first couple 100 meters. That they're not a race ender, they're more of a race annoyance, if anything. But it can be a big shock on race morning if you swim directly into them, especially head on, which we've had people do. After you get past that, again, it is a time trial start, but for these first couple of buoys here, it is going to be very, very congested. It's going to be crowded. This is the first big race of the season in the DMV, so there's going to be a lot of people and kind of panicking for these first couple 100 yards or meters, whatever you're using. Don't let that discourage you. There is going to be a bit of a battle for a position. There's going to be kind of a jockeying, if you will, and kind of a dominance that is trying to be established out on the swim course. My advice to you, if it gets super, super busy, wait 1 second and you will be out of the riffraff and you will be able to swim along nice and comfortably, and you'll be pulled along by a lot of these crazy guys, crazy girls, for free of charge. If you are a front runner, you don't really have that luxury. You kind of have to establish yourself out there, establish yourself in the pace line there. And if you are trying to be a front runner candidate out there, you want to slowly start to establish yourself at the front of those packs out there. Maybe not the very first person, but the second, third, and even fourth person in some of those echelons that do eventually form out there on race day. Those echelons are going to happen in the following area. Once you get past this second buoy, third buoy, and fourth buoy, after you get to this point in time, it's mostly established as to what's going on. Because this is a one-loop course, you do not have the ability to see what's going on after a second loop. As a swim that does have a second loop. So with that, you kind of have to stick with the group for a little while and see what happens. If you find that the group you are with is just going way too fast for you, do not wait until this second turn buoy over here to make the call to kind of just back off a little bit. What you need to be doing out there on race day is seeing what's happening here, what's happening here, what's happening here. Am I going too hard? Am I going too fast? Am I alone? Am I with a group of 10 people? And gauge things based off of that. If you find that you are alone and you think, I maybe it'd be best for me to surge up to the group ahead and just kind of ride them for a little while, or it would be better to just drop back to the group that's behind me. You're going to have to gauge that on race day. A huge problem that happens on race day is athletes really ignore all of their warning signs and how they've trained for that first long stretch here. After you turn here, this is actually not going to be super crowded over here, believe it or not. It's actually going to be quite nice there. But what most people experience after they get to the second turn buoy is, oh my goodness, I've gone way too hard out here. If that is the case, you need to just get back in and just kind of recover on this whole long stretch in here. But be aware that the water is going to be pushing you in two different directions, and that is something that you can identify before your race starts very easily. All right, so in order to not get to this area, this far area down here on race day, and this, without blowing up, you need to be going a little bit easier than you want to go, and that is an unfortunate reality of this course here. Once you do get to the backside of our course, if you get to these first two buoys coming back and you say, wow, I'm having a really great day, then sure, you have a little bit more of a green light to kind of push it up until where this arrow is right here. But this is another big trap on this course, right? As you get closer, you can start to see a little bit more on that beach, a little bit more people there. It starts to get a little bit more real that you are almost done with the swim and the bike is about to start. So naturally, nerves kind of pick up. Very, very big trap is for you to floor it to that finish line and absolutely leave some people in your dust. And you don't want to do that because on the transition out of here, it's pretty much just uphill for a little bit. You run on the beach, you're covered in sand, then you go uphill, you're in the transition area, you go uphill again to the mount/dismount line, and you climb out of the park for the first couple of miles, which we'll talk about in a second. This area leading up to the beach here, right through here, here, this is going to be our recovery zone, right? This is going to be our area where the swim is the swim. We're just getting back in here. We're going to start to pick our feet kick, our leg kick a little bit more, kicking our feet, and our arm speed's going to remain the same, and we're going to actively start to go through our mind what's going to happen when we get out of T1. After we get out of T1, or after we get officially out of the swim onto T1, you can easily see that there is a beach here. You will also notice that in some of the pictures that we went through in the athlete guide there is a beach there. Sometimes they have little tubs for you to get the sand off of your feet. Sometimes they don't. If they do, I definitely recommend that you just take the extra 2 seconds to dip your feet into these little kiddie pools to get some of the sand off of your feet. It's going to feel so much comfortable later on. If they don't, maybe just a quick bottle of water in the transition area, squirt them off, put your socks on, off you go, easy. But just one last tip up until the bike. So now this is our bike course, right? We are going to be following the red over here. So this blue is the Olympic, and you're just going to ignore that. But the red is our half. You're going to go out of the state park here, hang a left-hand turn, and you're going to go on this stretch of road, which you will only be doing once. Okay, then you're going to veer off over here. You're going to do this loop 2 times, and then you're going to do this little strip on the way back down only 1 time before you zigzag your way back into the state park here. This is what it looks like a little bit cleaner on something like our Ride with GPS, and immediately you should note that this has about 1,800 feet, maybe a little bit more. Let's call it 1,900 feet of elevation gain. And another thing that you will know here is the max elevation is 7.3, but that this elevation comes again and again and again and again. You're really always going up, you're going down, you're doing something. You're going to use pretty much every gear that you have on your bike on race day. Coming out of that transition area, you are going to be climbing up Major Hill. To do that, this is our run course where you will be running on this concrete patch, and you're going to be running up this stretch of road right through here. But the reason I have this up here, you can see the guardrails up here, and that is the road here. So there's a big hill up to this stop sign up here. And then if we keep going here, you can see that this is our bike up there. Our mount and dismount line is located further down right through here, and this is a steep part of the bike. You are going to be coming up this, right? And if we go over a little bit more, you'll be able to see it a little bit better here. This is our mount and dismount line way over there. Great spectator viewing right through here. But even still, you can see how steep it is, and just think we're about 8-9 feet up on a car right now. So this is very, very steep here. Make sure you start in a bigger gear, just further up on the cassette, maybe even that small ring if you're still running 2 rings over there. But I just wanted to show you that really fast before we talked about the bike. This is our bike course, and we're going to be highlighting the first stretch up here. This blue little section that we are highlighted here, this is coming out of our state park, and that happens right around here. Right, this is 2.8 miles, but we are continuously climbing up after that, and we have a little bit of a break, and then we slowly start climbing again. So remember, 1,800 feet, we have 500 feet of elevation gain through these first 9 miles. So we have a major chunk that we cannot ignore. Also, coupled with the fact that during this first little stretch over here, we are going to have 4.5 percenters coming out of the park for a little bit before it starts cooling off. If it's a humid day out there and you're running a visor on your bike, don't be afraid don't be surprised if it starts fogging up when you're coming out of the park over there. There's just not a lot of moving air. The visor can't get cooled off, or your sunglasses, they start fogging up, so you have to move them down. It's going to be a little bit of a mess for a little bit, but just get out of the park as best you can. And once you start getting up there, right, once you get past that first mile, the elevation isn't super serious anymore. Okay, instead of 4%, you're talking 1 to 2.5% there, and likely less than 2%. As you can see scrolling over this. It's more annoying than anything. It will prevent you from establishing a rhythm of just tapping out. So don't be frustrated or get super in your head for those first 3 miles if you're not getting the speed that you want or establishing the rhythm that you would like. A common trap is for athletes to really overdo it inside the park, and that's in the first 3 miles of the race. So again, just kind of get out of the park. Again, your effort level is probably going to be a little bit higher, but your speed is going to be lower. If you're running with a power meter, this is going to be a great resource for you on race day. Okay, and we'll talk about that in a second as well. Coming further up the course here, up to mile 4.5 here, we branch off. You will be able to see the road that you finish or you come back in, and you're going to go past that. This is going to be our road that we do the first and only time here. And we are greeted with a couple of downhills in here. They are fool's errands to just totally bomb them. Another big trap. And again, this has all happened in the first 6 miles of the race. Another huge trap for athletes to fall into for this first 6 miles here is to totally crush the downhills, not let their legs recover at all. And again, I definitely want you going fast on these downhill sections, but I don't want you pushing the pace just to push the pace of simply just to get your speed up. Plenty of opportunities to do that in a second here, but not right here. These hills are going to be going fast, but in a controlled fast state. These are going to be areas where you can get your heart rate back down a little bit. And again, we are going back up here again, and we are going to experience some headwind or head crosswind. I don't care what the weather report says, it always happens right through here. As we get past that and we slowly get back up to this little section over here, this right-hand turn up here is very deceiving. We have a downhill gradient here, but you are going to have to work to get back up to speed. It's just the way it is. And as you veer off to this left-hand side over here, we are going to enter this course, or this looped part of the course, for the very first time. This part of the course on this top section up here, this is going to be an area that is notoriously fast for a little while, okay? If it's not fast, it's going to be easy to push the power here. And again, this is our third trap of the course, and we haven't even talked about the major hills yet. All right, this section right through here, right before we slowly get to experience our first big hill up here. It's graded downhill, so again, you can fly a little bit easier. If there's a headwind, it's probably going to upset you a little bit more than you want it to. Just remain an arrow. You're probably going to have some crosswinds mixed in as well during this section, and you are going to dive down here, and we are going to identify the two major players out on this course that everyone's probably aware of and talking about and all that good stuff. These two hills happen kind of back to back over here. This first one and second one are kind of sneaky. First one really comes out of nowhere. You are going down a hill. You are going to be dropped down right before this, probably right around here. There is going to be an aid station as well. But when you come down over here, you are going to drop down like a stone. Something that most people do not talk about, though, is from 15.92 all the way up to 16 point, let's call it 16.4 just to make it even. You have a flat stretch of road here. All right, so that is longer than you want it to be. Again, 15.9 to 16.4, it's about half a mile, right, of really flat area. It's a slight downhill grade here, so you're not going to be going as fast as you want to, and your speed's just going to be dropping. What people really, really do here is they really try to keep the pace up as long as possible here and drive that hill. I wouldn't be afraid to let that pace come off a little bit, right, and just work your way into the hill here instead of trying to keep your speed at 30 miles an hour up until this 16.4. You're going to effectively just enlarge the hill here. So if you are dropping to 25 miles an hour, but you're a lot more comfortable than 30 miles an hour, that's what I would be doing in this stretch, especially for the last 0.25 of a mile here. Once you get to this hill right here, you're going to be seeing people littered all over the place right here, and that's because of a couple different things. Backing up here, we only have 590, 600 feet of elevation gain for the first 16.3 miles. So you can really motor if you want to over here without any real impacts. But as you get to these two little hill sections right through here, and I'll zoom in here, you can see that the hills really spike. This is going to be where we have our 7.3 elevation increase here, gradient. And this is going to be where people start to kind of explode or come undone on race day. This first hill, what most people want to do is really, really attack it, and I caution you against doing that. Your power is going to be higher for sure, but again, you're going up 7.5% incline here, so you just really want to maintain your pace and tap it out. Just tap, 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 tap all the way up the hill here. Don't overdo it. You are going to have to stand up in a couple of sections, but you know, hey ho, right? Again, 6.4 all the way, or 16.4 all the way up to 16.7. So we do have a little bit of a longer hill than you want, but again, it's not like it's 4 miles long, so it's going to be over before you know it. If you do get up this hill at this section at the top of the hill, if you get up here with ample opportunity to work again and you're feeling good, don't be afraid to go back into it right away. If you really push that hill, you're going to have to recover a little bit more during this section over here. And this brings me to my next sneaky hill. This is going to be back in a forested area. You're going to be rolling along. You're going to think, wow, I feel a little tired. I'm not really so sure that this is so difficult. And all of a sudden, bam, you get hit with another one. From 19.5 all the way up, and this hill really lasts until about 20.75. But for our purposes, we're going to stop it at 19.9. So this is a little bit of a longer hill here, but our gradient isn't as much here. It doesn't come all at once. It's a little bit more spread out, so you are going to have an opportunity to kind of catch some people here. The flyers that you saw that really motored up this other hill, you're probably going to have a chance to reel them in unless they're real hill specialists. After everyone does climb that second hill here, this section is probably, in my book, considered one of the tougher sections out on course. Again, I don't care what the weather report says. You're probably going to have a headwind. You're probably also going to have a crosswind mixed in here, okay? So just be very, very careful. After that point, again, it's also very, very common for athletes to have a headwind or a very difficult crosswind all along this stretch of road right here before we start our second loop again. You will also see that it is slightly inclined again through from mile 25 all the way up to 29. So again, it's just a an area where you have to slowly, slowly, slowly just kind of tap it out and not overdo it. If you are overdoing it, you will pay big time later on. All right. Now, when we start our second loop, the aid station up at the top of our course here, where we talked about where you can go very, very quick with a little penalty, at least initially in the interim, is going to be located right there. Do not skip that aid station. That's going to be a key player on race day. That aid station, in my mind, is going to be the most important for you to hit, whether you're going fast, whether you're going slow. It comes at the perfect opportunity in your race to allow you to kind of cool off, recover, take some calories in, whatever you need to do. It's going to be perfect right there. Now, after we cross that section, we get our nutrition, hydration, whatever we need, we are going to enter the two hills again. This first hill is going to be, I mean, they're going to be carbon copies. They're the exact same hills. The first time you go up that big hill again, just get up it. Do not floor it up the hill. If you find that you're standing all the way up and you're putting power out well excess of your threshold, you're going to need to back it off a little bit over there. And again, once we come around this section over here, the very tough section that I talked about, where the wind just slowly turns on you and you are going to experience an increase in elevation pretty much until you turn off. This isn't that middle section there is going to be an area where a lot of athletes get really dejected. Don't let this terrain get to you. It is very, very common for athletes to struggle in this straightaway here before we turn off on the first and the second time they're here. Stay mentally strong, and that's going to come in handy. All right. Once we turn off on this left-hand stretch over here, athletes almost always want it to be faster than it is. But highlighting it over here, we could see 3.5 miles. We have 101 feet of elevation gain. Max gradient isn't too crazy. It's 2%. But the thing that does happen is the elevation just keeps coming up and again and again and again and again. When we get to the end of the road here, right through here, you'll be able to see the park before we go back in. Right here. And I'm going to highlight the rest for us right there. You'll be able to see it, or almost be able to see it, once you turn off over here. You'll be able to see people going in, turning in for our way back in. This is our last major trap on the bike course here. This is a steady decline mixed over here. And again, you're going to want to go faster than you want to. Just this little section right here, 54.24. This is a negative, but it's only 0.3% negative. So technically, yeah, it is a negative, but it's not like it is a 2% negative or a 4% negative. That is only going to happen once you get very, very close to the end, where it does slowly start to drop off. And when it does, it comes fast, negative 4%. You're going to be flying. But at that point, the race is pretty much over here. I mean, we're talking 55.27, right? And I mean, the course is only 55.9 miles. So when it starts to drop off, another area where athletes really like to push it is right there. But again, that's kind of the area where you do need to start recovering. So if we do head over to our best bike split area, as we roll over the course, you can watch our little guy down there with the wind profile, and you can see pretty much everything that I just told you, right? We got a little bit of a tailwind. It might be a crosswind over here. Typically, there's a cross headwind mixed back into this section over here. When we turn around again, switches, a little bit of a cross head-ish wind. Turning around over here, we have more of a headwind before we go back in, and theoretically, that's a headwind. Sometimes it's a tailwind mixed back in there, but once you get back into the park, the wind most times doesn't matter. There's a lot of vegetation that just kind of blocks it off anyways over there. So this is our time analysis here. If we did go a little bit harder, 5% harder is only going to net you 2.4 or 2 minutes and 43 seconds of free stuff after that. Again, this athlete averaged power of 278. 5% harder for them is going to be 186 watts. Is it worth that for this course? I think it's a little bit too hard for them. But there are some definite areas where you can get some big boosts. And some of those are going to be the hills area. And this is kind of a pros and cons scenario. This 2-minute section is going to net us 6 seconds here. Another sneaky section is going to be mixed right in here where that aid station is. We have a 4-second gain over the course of a minute and 20 seconds. And there's loads of these that are scattered out throughout the course. So if you are feeling good, don't be afraid to kind of go a little bit harder for a little bit, and you will find that you are saving some seconds here and there. Okay, but just be aware that if you do go harder than prescribed or that you should out there, this is a course that will come back to bite you on the run. And the run. Speaking of the run, this is our run course. This is a 3-loop course. This is only one of those loops coming out right here. This is that hill that I showed you right through here, and you are going to be climbing up the entire time until you peel off to go back down over there. So the best way to attack this is to just get up the hill, especially this first section for when you are getting to the stop sign, taking your right-hand turn, and you are getting past kind of the turn where you are not going to be able to see the park anymore. About halfway up here, the things do level off a little bit, but it does kick up again, right? We are going up a 3% incline over here. Again, this 4.4-mile loop has 245 feet of elevation gain. You're doing that a bunch of times, not just once. As you slowly make your way up there, it is a slow decline after that, and we do our little loop around. It's going to be the other way, actually, but you get the same elevation. And then you are going to have to climb back up almost to that point of entry that you came in on, and then you do drop down again. So this is if you break this course down into a couple of sections, it's very easy to identify. You're going up right here, you're going down right here, up again, and then down again before you have to kick up to that finish line over there. So really, you can break it down to 4 sections over here. First section on every loop is going to be going up on that uphill. Just get up it. Second section on our downhill right here. Enjoy the downhill, but don't enjoy it too much, okay? Because you do have to climb back up for our section number 3 over here before we have some free speed going back down. And it's not just up or down over here. You can see that there are little kind of impacts over here where you are going to have to go up, you're going to have to go down, you are mixed in, but over the course of each section, the overarching elevation is pretty self-evident over there. On this first loop, your main goal is just to establish yourself on the course, get your run legs, especially up the big hill. This section over here is very, very critical to establish yourself. What's going on? Now, my legs feeling okay. Is my nutrition up? This is likely going to be the first time you're able to really run out there on the course. My hip flexors sore. Actively go through your heat protocol. What's happening? And just the list goes on and on and on. That's going to be the first opportunity for you to really do that for most people. Second area for you to do that is up this section right through here. See what's going on. Evaluate the kind of conditions of yourself, how you feeling climbing back up this time. You're still going to hit the same elevation, but it's going to happen in a much longer area rather than that big hill that you had climbing out of the transition area before you do drop down again, and that's going to happen right in this section here before you get back to the finish line, which is located right there. This little extra that we talked about, section number 5, is that section of the concrete that we talked about escaping that little marina place, that little boathouse thing, watchtower, whatever you want to call it. Going back to start our second and third loop. And the second and third loop, the strategy really doesn't change. That's why we only have one loop of it right here depicted for you. The strategy really doesn't change a whole lot. On this first big hill coming out of that transition area, just get up it, especially during this section. Establish yourself here before you climb up again, and just get up this second section of the big hill. Once you do make that right-hand turn, evaluate what's happening with you. Don't overdo it. Have fun, but not too much fun before the real work starts here. And then we're getting to that finish line area. We're dropping down to the park here where that finish line is located. And then we are evaluating what's happening with us very quickly again, because we have to go back up a third time, see what's going on here, up again, have fun, go and go on that third loop. Once you get about halfway through, or actually once you start to get to, on this third loop, once you get to the top of this hill again, right here, for the very last time, you are, it's go time for you. It's time to Put the pedal to the metal. It's time to really establish yourself on that race course if you have not already. Front runners are going to be doing that earlier in their race. They're going to be podium chasers are going to be doing that on the second or first loop once they get up there, and race winners are going to be establishing themselves on that little dip on that uphill for the very first time. All right, that was the Kinetic 70.3 2024 edition. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out to me. I'll be happy to help you out this year. One of my favorite races of all time, right in here. Good luck to everybody on our 2024 edition.